The desert wind moaned like a dying fiddle. Red Mesa lay quiet under a sky bruised with sunset, a town half swallowed by sand, half forgotten by God. The saloon lights flickered weakly, and tumbleweeds drifted across the main road like ghosts searching for someone who'd never come back. From a far ridge, a single rider appeared, her shadow long against the bleeding sky. Clara Vaughn. She rode a dun mare with tired eyes and a saddle patched more times than it should have been. Her coat was dusty, her hands callous, and her eyes, those calm, gray eyes, carried the look of a woman who'd seen too much and forgotten too little. She wasn't riding for money or fame. She was riding for a man. The wind caught her hat brim as she slowed near the town's edge. The old wooden sign still read Red Mesa. POP 118, though everyone knew it hadn't been true in years. She passed the empty livery, the boarded-up church, and the sheriff's office that now smelled more whiskey than law. The saloon doors creaked open. A handful of men looked up, their poker hands paused in midair. "Evening, miss," one of them muttered. "Ain't safe riding out this late." Clara dismounted slowly, her boots kicking dust. "I've ridden through worse," she said, voice low but steady. "Name's Clara. I'm looking for a man, Jesse Cole." The name silenced the room. A glass slipped from someone's hand, shattering. The piano player stopped mid-note. Old Ben, the barkeep with a face carved from wrinkles and regret, finally spoke. "Cole," he rasped. "Ain't heard that name in years. Thought he was dead." "He ain't," Clara said. "I heard he's still out there. South Ridge, near the canyon." Ben spat into a rag, shaking his head. "You don't want to go there, lady. Ain't nothing but ghosts and coyotes." "Then I'll fit right in," she said, pushing through the swinging doors and mounting her horse again. The desert stretched endless and orange under the fading light. Cactus shadows leaned long, and the air smelled of rain that never came. Clara rode in silence, the rhythm of hooves like a heartbeat in the dust. As night fell, she lit a lantern and followed the old canyon trail. Somewhere in the dark, a wolf howled, a lonely sound, too human to ignore. She thought of the last time she'd seen Jesse Cole. Years ago, when blood and fire filled the night. He had come out of nowhere, a stranger on a black horse, when her wagon was ambushed by the Hollister gang. Her husband, Thomas, had been shot dead before he could draw. The outlaws would have done worse to her if Jesse hadn't ridden in guns blazing, taking 3 bullets and a knife wound just to drag her out alive. Then he vanished, leaving only his blood on the dirt and her prayers unanswered. For years, she believed him dead. Then, a week ago, she found a rumor in a trading post. A broken cowboy living alone beyond Red Mesa. And Clara Vaughn, the widow he'd once saved, packed her rifle, her courage, and her heart, and rode back into the desert. The shack appeared just before midnight, a crooked outline against the stars. Smoke drifted from the chimney, faint and uncertain. She tied her horse and approached quietly, hand on her revolver. The door hung loose on one hinge, the boards weathered and pale. She raised her lantern, its light trembling like her breath. Inside sat a man at a table, shoulders broad, hair grayed, a bottle of whiskey beside him. He didn't look up when she stepped in. Only when her lantern touched his face did the years fall away. Jesse Cole, once a hero, now a ghost of himself. His beard was unkempt, his eyes hollow, but still the same deep brown she remembered, full of fire that refused to die. He squinted at her through the dim light. "You're far from home, miss," he said, voice rough as gravel. "Name's Clara," she replied. Clara Vaughn. The name hit him like a bullet. His hand froze halfway to the bottle. "I remember," he murmured. "You were?" "The widow," she finished softly. "You saved me. Once." He leaned back, eyes shadowed with disbelief. "That was a long time ago. Should have left it buried." "I tried," she said, "but some debts don't stay buried." For a long time, neither spoke. The only sound was the crack of the fire and the wind howling through the boards. "You shouldn't have come," Jesse said finally. "I heard you were dying," she replied. "I came to make sure it wasn't true." He gave a bitter laugh. "You wasted a ride. Ain't nothing left here but whiskey and old ghosts." She stepped closer, the lantern's glow catching the scars on his arm. Deep, ugly reminders of the night he'd saved her. "I see what's left," she whispered, "and it's worth saving." He looked up then, really looked at her. The dust on her coat, the strength in her stance, the fire that matched his own. For the first time in years, Jesse Cole saw Hope standing in front of him, wearing a widow's ring and a heart too stubborn to quit. "You always this foolish?" he asked, half a smile breaking the roughness of his tone. "Only when I'm right," she said. He chuckled once, low and tired. "You talk like a woman fixin' to start trouble." "I came to return the favor," she said firmly. "You saved my life. Now it's my turn." Outside, the desert thundered softly, not from the sky, but from hooves. Distant, approaching. Jesse's smile faded. His eyes narrowed toward the canyon. "Damn," he muttered, standing slowly. "You shouldn't have come, Clara." "Why?" she asked. "Because trouble's been following me for years, and it just found me again." She glanced toward the window. Faint lights flickering on the ridge. Lanterns. Riders. Maybe 4, maybe more. Her hand moved to her revolver. "Then I guess we'd better get ready." He stared at her, this widow who refused to flinch, even with death in the distance, and something inside him stirred, something that had been dead for a long time. The outlaw in him remembered courage. The man in him remembered love. He took a deep breath, grabbed his rifle, and nodded once. "All right, then, Mrs. Vaughn," he said. "Let's see if the desert still remembers my name." The wind howled again as they doused a lantern. Shadows swallowed the shack. The riders grew closer, the sound of hooves like thunder rolling through the bones of the earth. Clara felt her pulse steady, her mind clear. Jesse glanced at her. One broken soul, one brave widow, standing shoulder to shoulder as the past rode straight toward them. The night had come alive again, and so had they. The dawn came slow, bleeding gold across the canyon rim. A hawk circled above as the desert awoke. Silent, waiting. Clara opened her eyes to the crackle of fire and the smell of coffee. Jesse sat by the flames, rifle across his knees, his hat low over tired eyes. She rose quietly, brushing the dust from her skirt. "Didn't sleep?" He shrugged. "Didn't need to. Sleep's for men who ain't hunted." The night before, they'd faced nothing. The riders had vanished before reaching the shack. Maybe scouts, maybe ghosts. But Jesse hadn't slept a wink. He was listening, waiting for the past to strike again. Clara poured herself a tin cup of coffee and sat opposite him. The silence between them was heavy. Not awkward, but filled with things neither dared to say. After a moment, she asked, "You gonna tell me who they were?" Jesse's jaw tightened. His eyes stayed on the horizon. "They ain't lawmen," he muttered. "They're worse. Men I used to ride with." She blinked. "Used to." He gave a short, bitter laugh. "Yeah, used to, before I grew a conscience." He poked the fire, sparks flaring like old sins. "Name was the Hollister Gang. You heard of 'em, I reckon." "I have," she said quietly. "They were the ones who—" "Yeah," he cut in, "the ones who killed your husband. And near killed you." He stared into the flames, the reflection of fire dancing in his eyes. "I rode with them once. Didn't know what kind of devils they were, till it was too late. By the time I tried to leave, I was already marked. They don't forgive betrayal. When they hit that wagon, I was supposed to be with them, but I turned my gun on my own men that night. Saved you, killed 3 of theirs, including Kane Hollister's brother." Clara said nothing, but her fingers gripped the cup tight enough to bend the tin. "I figured they'd come for me sooner or later," he went on. "So I ran. Been running ever since. Southwest doesn't matter. The desert's the same wherever you go. Empty." Clara's eyes softened. "You think hiding makes you free?" He looked up sharply. "It keeps me alive." "Alive ain't the same as living," she said. Her words hit him harder than any bullet. For a moment, he looked like a man trying to remember how to breathe. The fire popped between them, throwing shadows on the walls of the shack. Clara set her cup down. "You said you didn't know what kind of devils they were." "But Jesse, my husband, did." He frowned. "What?" She looked down, voice trembling just enough to betray her pain. Thomas wasn't some innocent man caught in the crossfire. He rode with them too, at least before you came along. He thought I never knew, but a wife always knows. When they turn on him, I thought it was justice. But you came. You saved me. You saved me from him. Jesse's face went pale, the weight of her words settling like a stone in his chest. All these years, he whispered, I thought I'd ruined your life. That night, I thought I made you a widow by my own hand. She met his eyes. You made me free. Silence again, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was fragile, full of something unspoken and alive. Jesse turned his gaze away, blinking hard. You don't understand what I did after. The blood, the run-in. I ain't fit company for anyone. Then it's a good thing I didn't come for company, she said softly. I came to give back what you gave me, a reason to keep breathing. He looked at her again, and for a moment, the years fell away. Beneath the scars and whiskey and dust was a man who had once ridden into gunfire to save a stranger. Clara, he said quietly, you don't owe me nothing. That's where you're wrong, she said, smiling faintly. You gave me my life, and I'm not about to let you throw yours away. The days passed slow after that. Clara stayed, cooking, cleaning, fixing what little she could. Jesse worked beside her in silence, mending fences, chopping wood, patching holes in the roof. He started drinking less, talking more. At night, they'd sit on the porch, watching the stars stretch endless across the sky. Sometimes she'd hum an old song, one her mother used to sing. Jesse would listen quietly, his hand resting on the worn rifle beside him, the sound of her voice somehow softer than the night wind. One evening, as they watched the sun melt into the horizon, Clara asked, You ever think about going back? Facing what's left of the gang. He chuckled low. You mean walk right into the devil's mouth? They already know where you are, Jesse. You can't run forever. He sighed. Maybe I don't want forever. She looked at him, eyes steady. Then what do you want? He hesitated, then met her gaze. Peace. Peace don't come from running, she said gently. You find it by looking the past in the eye. Jesse smiled faintly, but there was pain behind it. You got a way of making everything sound simple, Clara. Not simple, she said. Just worth doing. Later that night, a coyote howled near the canyon. Jesse went to check the perimeter, lantern in hand. The wind had shifted, and with it came a smell he knew too well. Smoke. He rounded the side of the shack and froze. Carved into the wooden door with a Bowie knife was a rough, blood-marked symbol. 2 crossing bullets beneath a broken horseshoe. The Hollister mark. His breath caught. The old fear returned, cold and familiar. He grabbed the knife still wedged in the wood and stared into the darkness beyond. Jesse. Clara's voice came from behind him. He turned slowly, holding the blade. They found me. She looked at the symbol, her face pale but steady. Then they'll come soon. He nodded grimly. Yeah, and they'll bring hell with them. Clara stepped forward and took the knife from his hand. Then we'll be ready. He blinked, surprised by her calm. You ain't scared? Of dying? No, she said quietly. Of losing you again? Maybe. Jesse's throat tightened. He wanted to tell her to run, to ride far from this cursed canyon, but he knew she wouldn't. She was too much like him now. He looked out at the desert, vast, empty, waiting for blood again. Tomorrow, he said softly, we start preparing. Clara nodded. Then let's not waste the night. She reached out and took his hand. It was rough, callous, shaking just slightly, but he didn't pull away. For the first time in years, Jesse Cole felt something stronger than guilt. He felt alive. Above them, lightning flicker on the horizon. Faint but coming closer. The desert was holding its breath. The past wasn't done with them. But this time, they wouldn't face it alone. The sky hung low that morning, swollen with dust and thunder. The air felt strange, like the desert itself knew blood was coming. Jesse stood on the porch, cigarette between his fingers, eyes scanning the ridge. They'll come from the north, he said. Always do. Wind with them that way. Clara was at the workbench inside, laying out the rifle she cleaned the night before. How many, you think? 5, maybe 6. Kane Hollister'll be leading. He won't send boys to do a man's work. She checked the chamber of her rifle. Then he'll get what he came for. Jesse looked back at her, hair tied, sleeves rolled, eyes hard but shining. He hadn't seen a sight that strong since before the war. You ain't got to stay for this, he said quietly. Clara looked up, a faint smile tugging her lips. You said that last night. Still here, ain't I? He wanted to argue, but she'd already turned back to her work, calm as a dawn before a gunfight. By noon, they'd turned the canyon into a fortress. Old mine carts lined the ridge, loaded with dynamite Jesse had kept buried for years. Clay jars filled with kerosene waited along the path. The narrow pass below the shack was littered with loose stones, a death trap for any rider who didn't know the ground. Never thought I'd see you set in dynamite again, Clara said, watching him work the fuse line. Never thought I'd see you loading shells. He shot back. She laughed softly. Life's full of surprises, cowboy. He glanced at her, and for a heartbeat, the war in his eyes eased. They took positions when the sun dipped low and the horizon turned red, a color that belonged more to blood than to light. From the north came the sound, low at first, then louder. Hooves. 6, no, 7 riders. The dust they raised shimmered in the heat. Jesse chambered around. They're here. Clara took her rifle, lying flat behind a boulder above the trail. Then let's make him regret it. Kane Hollister rode at the front. Tall, black coat flapping like a crow's wing, a silver tooth flashing whenever he smiled. He looked every inch his brother's kin. Same cruel eyes, same hunger for pain. Cole, he shouted, voice echoing through the canyon. You took my blood. Now I've come for yours. Jesse stepped into the open. No fear in his stance, just the calm of a man who'd already met death once before. I'm right here, Kane. You want me, come get me. Kane grinned, drawing his pistol. With pleasure. The first shot cracked like lightning. The canyon erupted. Clara fired from the ridge, her bullet taking one rider clean off his horse. Jesse dug behind a cart, returning fire with 2 quick bursts. Dust exploded around them, the air thick with gunpowder and screams. Another rider charged forward. The cart exploded beneath him, a fireball lighting up the rocks. The smell of smoke and burning leather filled the air. Nice shot, Jesse yelled. Wasn't shooting, just praying. Clara shouted back. Kane's men split, circling the canyon. Bullets hissed through the air. Clara moved from rock to rock, steady as a ghost. Every time a rider came close, her rifle spoke first. Jesse reloaded, blood dripping from a graze on his arm. They'll flank left, he called. Already see 'em, she replied, sight steady, 1 shot, 2, both men down. Kane howled in rage, dismounting, stalking forward through the smoke. You think you can kill me, Cole? You think the desert forgives? Jesse stepped from cover, rifle in hand. Ain't looking for forgiveness. He fired. The bullet tore through Kane's shoulder, but the outlaw kept coming, laughing through the pain. Always said you didn't finish what you started. Kane bellowed. He charged, slamming Jesse into the dirt. The rifle clattered away. Fists, dust, blood, raw and brutal. Jesse landed a blow that split Kane's lip, but the bigger man swung back hard, sending Jesse sprawling. He reached for his revolver, but Clara's voice cut through the chaos. Jesse! She tossed him her rifle. He caught it, rolled, and fired. The shot hit Kane square in the chest, a final, thunderous end. Kane staggered, eyes wide. You should have stayed dead. Jesse stood over him. Reckon I'm done dying. Kane fell, dust rising around him like smoke from a dying fire. The canyon fell silent. Only the wind moved, carrying the smell of spent powder and blood. Jesse dropped to his knees, breath ragged. Clara ran to him, crouching at his side. You're hit. He shook his head. Nothing fatal. He looked at her, her face streaked with dust, hair loose, hands trembling from a fight. You all right? She smiled through tears. I'm better than I've been in years. They sat there, surrounded by the wreckage of the past, the dead men, the shattered rocks, the smoke curling toward heaven. "You saved me again," Clara whispered. He met her gaze. "No, ma'am. This time you saved me." She laughed, a raw, beautiful sound, and leaned her head against his shoulder. Thunder rolled far off across the desert. The sky broke open, rain finally falling, soft and cold, washing the blood from the earth. It fell on Jesse's hat, on Clara's hands, on the graves of the men who'd chased him for years. For the first time in forever, the desert smelled clean. Jesse looked up at the rain, then back at her. "Never thought I'd live long enough to see the sky cry for me." She smiled gently. "Maybe it ain't crying. Maybe it's starting over." He took her hand, rough and warm. "You really think folks like us get to start over?" "I think we just did." They sat together until the storm faded, the last rumble echoing off Red Mesa like a heartbeat. When the rain stopped, only 2 horses remained standing, his black, her dun mare, both spattered with mud but alive. Clara rose, brushing dust from her skirt. "What now?" Jesse glanced at the bodies, then toward the town hidden beyond the ridge. "Now we go back. I'm tired of running." She nodded. "Then we face it together." He smiled, weary but real. Together? That night, the firelight inside the shack burned steady. Jesse cleaned his gun with hands that didn't shake anymore. Clara packed a few things they owned into saddlebags. Outside, the desert was still and silver beneath the moon. "Tomorrow," Jesse said quietly, "we ride into Red Mesa. Sheriff will need to hear what happened." "You trust him?" "No," he said with a half grin. "But I trust you." She looked over at him. The man she'd once thought lost, now alive again, scarred but whole. The man who'd once saved her, and whom she'd finally saved in return. "Then let's finish it," she whispered. The wind outside carried the last embers of smoke away, leaving the night clean. Somewhere in the distance, a lone coyote cried. Not in mourning, but as if to announce something reborn. And for the first time in years, Jesse Cole didn't hear it as a warning. He heard it as a song. Morning broke soft and quiet, a gentle kind of dawn that didn't belong to the desert. Mist hung low over the canyon, curling between rocks like ghosts slipping away. The rain from the night before had washed the land clean. For the first time in years, Red Mesa smelled of wet earth instead of gunpowder and sin. Clara stood outside the shack, packing the saddlebags with careful hands. Jesse came out behind her, coat patch, hat low, a limp in his step, but his eyes sharp again. He looked like a man who'd been to hell and found a road out. "You sure you're ready for this?" she asked, tightening the strap on her horse. He smirked faintly. "Been running from it long enough. Feels about time I turned around." Clara smiled, but her fingers trembled just a little. She'd seen too many men ride toward their past and never come back. He noticed. "Don't worry, ma'am. If the good Lord wanted me dead, he had plenty of chances before today. Maybe he was waiting for me to show up," she said. That earned a laugh, a real one this time, not the hollow kind. "Reckon he was." They mounted up, 2 riders heading toward town, side by side, their shadows long in the morning light. The wind whispered across the sand as if the whole desert held its breath, watching. When they rode into Red Mesa, every eye turned. The townsfolk came out of the saloon, the general store, the church with its broken bell. Whispers followed them like wind through dry grass. "That's him, Jesse Cole. Thought he was dead." "Who's the woman?" "Widow Vaughn. Lord have mercy." The sheriff stood on the porch of his office. Sheriff Dunn, a man too old for courage but too proud to admit it. He watched them dismount, his hand hovering near his revolver. "Cole," he said, voice low but steady, "you got gall showing your face here after all these years." Jesse met his gaze calmly. "I ain't here for trouble, Sheriff. Just truth." "Truth." Dunn spat. "Ain't much of that left round here." Clara stepped forward, a sealed envelope in her hand. "Then maybe it's time some came back." The sheriff frowned. "What's that?" "Proof," she said, offering it to him. He tore it open, eyes scanning the paper. As he read, the color drained from his face. "This is a letter from the U.S. Marshal's office," he muttered. Says Jesse Cole worked undercover, infiltrated the Hollister gang, until the operation went bad. He looked up sharply. You telling me all this time you were one of us? Jesse shrugged. Didn't feel like it after they left me for dead. The sheriff stared a moment longer, then sighed and shoved the paper back at him. Hell, Cole, you could have saved yourself a lot of trouble if you just said so. I tried, Jesse said. Nobody listened. The crowd murmured, guilt and awe mixing in equal measure. Jesse tipped his hat slightly. I ain't here to stir old ghosts. Just wanted the truth written down proper. Dunn nodded slowly. It'll be done. You got my word. Clara watched the exchange, her heart easing for the first time since she'd set out on this journey. Jesse wasn't a ghost anymore. He was a man again, and his name, once cursed, now carried honor. They spent the afternoon in quiet. The town's preacher came by to offer food. A few men from the saloon nodded in respect. Small gestures, but they meant something. By sunset, the world felt lighter. The streets glowed orange, and the saloon piano played a slow tune that drifted out into the dust. Jesse sat on the steps of the sheriff's porch, hat tilted back, watching the sun sink behind the ridge. Clara came to sit beside him, hands folded in her lap. You did it, she said softly. You finally stopped running. He smiled faintly. Feels strange. Like I've been carrying a ghost so long, I forgot what it was like to breathe. They sat in silence for a while, the kind that doesn't need filling. Then Jesse spoke again. I was thinking maybe I head north. New Mexico territory. Heard the ranches up there could use a good pair of hands. She glanced at him, eyes narrowing playfully. You planning on leaving me here after all this? He chuckled. Wouldn't dare. You'd probably hunt me down again. You're damn right I would, she said, grinning. The laughter faded into something quieter, something tender. He looked at her, really looked. The strength in her face, the way her hair caught the light, the steady fire in her eyes. For years he believed he didn't deserve peace. But now, staring at her, he realized peace had found him anyway. Clara, he said softly, I ain't good with words, and I sure ain't good with promises. But if you're riding north, I'd like to ride with you. She smiled, voice trembling just a little. Then I reckon we better get started before the sun's gone. The next morning came clear and bright. No ghosts, no thunder, just the wind at their backs. The townsfolk gathered quietly as Jesse and Clara saddled their horses. The sheriff handed Jesse a small folded paper, a signed statement clearing his name. You earned this, Dunn said gruffly. Jesse took it and nodded, didn't do it alone. He glanced at Clara. She climbed into the saddle, eyes on the open road beyond town. Ready, cowboy? He smiled. Been ready for years. They rode out of Red, Mesa slow, side by side. No one called after them. No one stopped them. The town just watched. Two silhouettes riding into the gold light of morning. As they reached the ridge, Clara looked back one last time. The desert stretched endless behind them, the place where pain had ended and something new had begun. Jesse caught her glance and tipped his hat. Ain't much out there waiting for us, he said. She smiled. Then it's ours to make. They spurred their horses forward, dust rising in their wake. The horizon swallowed them whole, two figures against the burning sky. The wind carried the faint sound of laughter, fading into the wild, the kind of laughter that only comes from souls finally free. And as the sun climbed higher, its light caught something on the ground, a single bullet casing half buried in the sand, glinting like a memory left behind. The desert was quiet again, but this time it wasn't morning. It was at peace.